Hi, everybody, and welcome to Forward Motion. I'm Karen Allen. Excited today because we have part 2 with James Bonato, the documentarian, the videographer, one of my favorite local documentarians, whatever the word is, you know what I mean. Anyway, we're going to continue with, we started part 1 with 2 films, and we are going to now complete with the 2 films, the final 2 films. James has made 4 films, and last time we discussed, I just don't want to get the names wrong, 3 cameos, all of which I've seen, by the way. And we also discussed my personal favorite, The Smith Perspective, and now we have your 2 other films, which you are totally into. You are really into them. So, and that is because, as you'll see the subjects, and you'll understand why, especially our last film, but I'm going to save that. Peace on Both Sides of the Gate, you did in 2021. And you interviewed, from what I remember, a lot of people. Talk to me about that film.
Peace on Both Sides of the Gate is about near-death experiences.
I have no understanding of what's going on except for pain. All I know is pain. And I get pulled, and I begin to stand up, and it's Tim, and he's shouting at me and yanking at me and trying to drag me up, and he's yelling it, and I begin to understand what he's saying. He's like, you were dead. If you died, I was going to die. And he's crying, and he must have been crouched over me trying to wake me, and I was unresponsive, and I stood up, and I don't know where I am.
What in the world is a near-death experience? Well, that is when your heart stops and you stop breathing and you are, for all intents and purposes, dead. And then perhaps you're in an emergency room and 20 minutes later your heart starts to pump again, you start to breathe again, and you are alive again. So that period in between the heart stopping and the heart restarting, that's the near-death experience.
You sought them out, and you found there's a hell of a population. It's almost like they're a group.
Millions.
Yeah, wow.
Millions.
Okay, I was just curious.
Not only are there millions of near-death experiencers, we call them NDEers, near-death experiencers. There's also another bunch of millions that don't even report it because they want to keep it private, or they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to deal with the, oh, you imagine it. They don't want to deal with the naysayers. Okay, so there's a huge population of near-death experiencers. What happens during that near-death experience?
And how long is that period?
It can be 20 minutes, it can be an hour. It's such a wide variety of answers to that question because it's just a plethora of answers.
Okay.
But what happens is they go somewhere, okay? Where do they go and how do they get there? Well, you've probably heard that story. Oh, I saw a bright light and it gets brighter. Or, oh, I went through a tunnel and there was a vortex. Or, gee, I remember, or I was being operated on and I came out of my body and I'm looking down and I can see myself and I can see the doctors and the nurses trying to revive me. And I went to this place. What is this place? Well, it has a whole bunch of different names. Some NDEers call it the afterlife. Some people call it heaven. Some people call it utopia. We'll say heaven just for the sake of arguments of this interview. So they all get to heaven in very similar ways, but also in unique ways. Every NDEer has a slightly different story about how they got there. Why is that? Well, it's because we're individuals. If you had a near-death experience and I had a near-death experience, we would compare notes and they would be different, but there would also be overlap. There would be similarities, okay? So the first part of the film is what happens during this near-death experience. The second part of the film, which is really the reason why I made it, is the message that they bring back, okay? So when they are in this heaven, as we call it, okay, they're kind of given a choice to either stay or come back. Some of them are actually commanded to come back. When they come back and what they experience, they're all experiencing something absolutely different because of that uniqueness. But the message that every NDEer has come back is the exact same. And it is the message that love is the cornerstone of humanity. And that is a reason why they decide to come back. If they're given to the opportunity to stay in this place. And it's been described, actually it's very difficult to describe, okay? I have 5 NDEers in my film, and I've asked them that question, what it's like. And the word peaceful and beautiful and lovely doesn't suffice. There's no word in the English language. There was another NDEer who was talking to me. She wasn't in my film. She goes, James, let me describe it this way. Think of the biggest love of your life, or the biggest loving moment. For me would be my wife. And she goes, multiply that feeling by 10,000, and you might be in the neighborhood of what this heaven feels like. So the NDEers who came back made a huge sacrifice to come back to give us this message. It was almost like a duty for them, a responsibility to give us this message, because we're not really doing that great of a job here on earth talking about love and spreading love. So my film was to amplify what those NDEers say to the public. They can tell everybody that they want about their near-death experience and about this love. I made the film to really, really promote it, to reach much more people.
Okay, but James, you've never had this experience, correct?
I've never had a near-death experience.
What made you think this is real, even though there's tons of people who claim it? How did you find these people? Why did you even do this type of film, considering the science is like not there, and it's questionable as to whether this really happens? No one can say for sure, I guess. Why are you involved in this type of thing?
Remember earlier I said the documentary films came into my lap?
Yeah.
This thing just fell right into my lap.
Wow.
And it fell into my lap in a very opportune time. Because when I was doing principal photography of these 5 people, and gosh darn it, Karen, none of them lived in Maryland, where I live.
I remember you traveled everywhere.
Maine, New Jersey, West Virginia, California. I'm all over the place. I'm going through a very, very deep depression in my life. And this story about love really hit me. I remember looking up the sky and I said, did you put this film into my life at this particular time? And I said, you know what, I'm not going to rationalize, I'm just going to make the gosh darn film. So it just came that way. After the film was made, over a year after the film was made, was actually my favorite story about it. There is a group called, or an organization called IONS, who sponsors a conference every year in a different city of the world, and probably, or at least of the United States. And last year it was in Salt Lake City. This past year it was in Arlington, Virginia. And I said, well, I only live 35 minutes away from Arlington, Virginia. Why don't I go? And we are invited, non-NDEers like you and I are allowed at this conference. As all NDEers are, of course, invited, and they talk about this message of love, and they promote this message of love, okay? And I called them up, and they actually know me quite well because of the film, Peace on Both Sides of the Gate. They know about the film, they've spread it within their community, and they know about me. And I said, well, I'm coming. And they said, and they actually called me up and goes, James, I'm glad you're coming. How would you like to be one of the speakers at this conference? And I was like, what? I felt like Joe Smith, like, what are you doing? Because I didn't die. I'm not an NDEer. I'm just a filmmaker. And she said, bingo. You're just a filmmaker. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody on the platform that's not an NDEer? You can give a refreshing angle. And that's exactly what I did, because I love speaking to groups of people, and I was absolutely honored to speak at the Near-Death Experience conference. Now, here's the kicker.
You've done a million podcasts, by the way, also that I've seen. Yeah. You have not stopped talking about this film.
Well, I'll try and explain this part without getting too emotional, but...
No, get emotional. It's okay.
Okay.
Men are allowed to be emotional.
Oh, they are?
And encouraged.
You think so?
In this world, yes. In my world.
Karen. Where did your mother and I go wrong? Males are not supposed to be...
That's why you're such a good filmmaker, too.
Oh, okay.
Because your emotions get into the film.
So I said, I'm going to speak at this conference. Wouldn't it be neat to have my 5 NDEers there at that conference too, with me? Okay, a couple of them were planning on coming anyway, but I said, I really want all 5 of us, or all 6 of us to be together. And I kind of nudged and pushed Faith a little bit. and all 6 of us were there collectively for the first time. And it was just the most beautiful moment of my life. And when I made the speech, of course, I had them sitting in the front row. The 5 of them were in the front row. Now, that film has been seen more than any other film that I've made. It's on 3 different platforms. On YouTube alone, I think it's got 47,000 views. And it's been shown on a couple of other platforms. So I don't know how many.
And you all can see it too. You guys can see it
Yeah.
at jamesbonatovideo.com for
Right.
free.
Right.
We're not going to let any film go by without mentioning that you can see it on James' own website. What about that there are still naysayers? And there are people like, what are you talking about? This is a figment of your imagination. This couldn't have really happened. It's just some sort of, I mean, people of non-faith. What do you think they thought? I mean, I guess, did they react to your film? Did you hear from them?
Well, that's what the conferences are about, to spread the word, okay? There's just no doubt in my mind. There are millions and millions and millions of cases. Really, that film kind of leads right in to my next 4th documentary film.
Yeah, well, that's a biggie too. I just want to mention that through Peace on Both Sides of the Gates, I did learn more about the near-death experience, and I did learn how excited and happy these people were in the rest of their lives to come together and spread that. So I did learn a lot. I'm not sure how it happens, science or not, but you believed it, so I believed it.
Yeah.
Now, your 4th film is, I'm going to say you put the most of James in that film as far as the subject. It's about narcissism. Everybody's podcasting and talking about narcissism, all kinds of narcissism. Yours is called Running with a Covert Narcissist.
Well, if you haven't guessed by now, I'm a victim of covert narcissism. It took me over a year to go from victim to survivor. But
It's a tough haul for anybody.
oh,
Who's
believe me.
experienced. Yeah.
I'm upset because I stood by you and this is how you repay me?
It's completely reversed. I'm always the one standing by you. Even when you're not around, I'm always sticking up for you. I'm always protecting you. Doesn't that define friendship? Even when you crapped out on me, I was always there for you. When you fall, I'd always be there to catch you. Even after all those awful things you said about me made me feel worthless, I always found a way to forgive you.
I've been there for you. I stand by that.
That's what you tell Tanya. Telling her your lies over and over again doesn't make it true.
Running with a Covert Narcissist is absolutely my most important film. It's the biggest contribution to the world I've ever made. So it is actually a departure film in 2 big ways, okay? Running with a Covert Narcissist differs from the other 3. First of all, when you watch 3 cameos, the Smith perspective, Peace on Both Sides of the Gate, sure, there's resiliency and perseverance in that film as you watch, but those are fun films to watch. And they go up at the end and you get this really, really good feelings. The whole reason why I make the documentary films is to promote that feeling, okay? With Running with the Covert Narcissist, you absolutely get that feeling at the end of the film. It is an incredible message at the end. Very, very positive message. However, you have to tough it out when you're watching that film. It's not exactly fun to watch. It's very educational and it's very, very moving. But when you reach that end, you're going to get that feeling. So it's definitely a departure in that way. It also it's a departure in another big way. In Running with a Covert Narcissist, there are paid professional actors in that film. And you're probably going, well, I guess it's not a documentary film then if there's professional actors. But there is. It is a documentary film. I had to be extremely creative about it. Because we're going to get into covert narcissism, all right? But I'm going to have to put you through this preamble here, right? Okay? I was told by everybody when I had the idea for the film, every person that I talked to said, you can't make the film. You absolutely cannot make the film because here's why. I wanted 3 stories of 3 victims of covert narcissists, which means that there were 3 covert narcissists, okay? I couldn't make the film with the real people because the covert narcissists could certainly go after them. And of course, they weren't going to be in the film. They could also go after the producer, which is me, all right? So they said, James, you can't have them in the film. I don't care if they want to be in the film or not. You can't have their face on camera. You can't even have their voice. You can't even have them do narration. You can't even have their name in the film. You understand? I go, yes, I understand. I says, well, I can do the actor thing, but I don't want it to be like a made-for-TV type movie or this is a reenacted. I wanted to do the real thing. So here's what I did. I put that message out on LinkedIn and Facebook. I said, who wants to be in this film? I'm looking for 3 victims of covert narcissism who want to tell their story. Okay? And I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be like pulling teeth. Nobody's going to want to bring up this terrible thing that happened to them. And there was a stampede of people. James, I want to be one of the 3 people. And I couldn't understand why everybody wanted to be in the film. Okay? So I said, it was over 50 people. How am I going to get this down to 3? I actually got it down to 6. I said, soon to be 3. I said, I got it down to 6, and I said, I called up the 6 on the phone, and I said, I want you to tell me your story from beginning to end, and don't leave anything out. All right? Some people took 45 minutes to tell their story. I said, is it okay for me to tape record it? He said, of course you can tape record it. That's why I'm here to talk. And I say tape record. Of course, now it's digital files, right? And they said, of course you can tape record me. So I said, start at the beginning and at the end, don't leave anything out. And there was one lady who took over 3 hours to tell her story. And she made it. She's one of the people in the film. So I figured out which 3, and I had to cut it up. I had to take the words, the actual, and transcribe the words that they said to me over the phone to a shooting script. And then the actors said those words on the shooting script. So it really is a first-hand documentary film. There are also 3 therapists, professional therapists in this film who specialize in narcissism. There's lots and lots of therapists all over the world. There's not that many narcissistic therapists, but I found them. And I had to drive up and down the East Coast. One was in New York, one was in North Carolina, one was in Annapolis, Maryland. So when you're watching Running with a Covert Narcissist, you'll see a scene in the movie played out by the actors. Then you'll see a therapist explain what you just saw. Then you'll see another scene in the movie by actors, and then another therapist comes on. So that is Running with a Covert Narcissist. You're probably going to ask me the same question you did for all 4. How did it come to be?
Well, another question I have too. You did mention something correct, because we both know a lot about narcissism, being also a victim. However, therapists, you said, are hard to find who are specialists in that. And part of that is because narcissists are so good at fooling therapists. They are so good at fooling us and everyone. They are really, can be very charismatic, and they fool everyone. And I just think people should know that, because it is it's tough to, you are attracted to them, and then you eventually, hopefully, sometimes never, but realize. So I'm glad you got those specific therapists, because they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that was a very educational film, but yeah,
Thank
go ahead.
you. That's what the whole purpose.
And I know you got into it because of your own situation.
Yes, I did. So why did I make the gosh darn film? I made it to teach people about covert narcissism, because they're very difficult to see. There are many different types of narcissists.
Right. There's also overt, but...
Right, okay. And
but covert is,
they're the most dangerous ones, okay?
Yep.
I had to teach that message, okay? The other reason that I made the film was I wanted to let fellow victims know that they're not alone, okay? We share that, okay? You're not alone, because a covert narcissist always wants you to be alone. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. Let me explain one last thing. Remember how I said there was a stampede of people? I couldn't understand it? I found out why. The documentary film gives them, the victims, a platform. okay? It legitimizes what happened to them. They have professional therapists. They have stories about it, and they can say, see what happened? This happened to me, because they can't tell it to their friends. They can't tell it to their colleagues.
It's hard to convey.
Right. This gives them a stage.
And nobody believes you half the time.
Right,
Or
right.
if you're, the person's family is super supportive, and it is just, I totally understand that. But it's a good lesson to learn, and they're very sneaky. But can you talk about some of the sort of, if you will, symptoms that people may need to watch out for?
So yes, what is a covert narcissist? A covert narcissist is a person who is absolutely charming, okay? It's like, oh my gosh, this person has the world by the tail. They have a huge facade, and it's very layered. Once you penetrate that facade, either on purpose or by accident, I penetrated my covert narcissist by accident, and you start challenging them, okay? You're toast, okay? I'm gonna look you in the eye right now and tell you something. You never, ever challenge a covert narcissist.
Correct.
They will do everything and anything to destroy you. I am not exaggerating
You are
one
not.
bit.
I'm in
Not
agreement.
They have many, many tools, all right? There is gaslighting, there is manipulation,
Isolation.
and projection, and flying monkeys, and button pushing, and word salad, all these things that the therapist in the film explain. And here's the thing, just in this interview, you've heard the tip of the iceberg. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
I can't get into it, okay? But there
Got to
you-
watch the film. Definitely can watch
Right,
the film.
right.
Yeah.
So
you will learn a lot. Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. Let's leave it at that for as far as the covert, running with a covert narcissist
Well, I love
goes.
that you put 3 different situations in there. That's helpful, because some people recognize themselves in one or more of those situations, because it could be a family member, a sibling, a parent, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. It could be anybody.
Yes,
and
it
some of
could be.
those,
And
a colleague,
a colleague.
someone you work with, a business person. I've actually, once I started experiencing more information and education about it, I was able to help a lot of people who experienced something at work and would tell me about it, just like you with a film. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. And,
Yeah.
and you can help them to survive, is more like, because that person just know that they will never change. They cannot change, and then they don't have the
They can't.
insight to
There's
be able
there's
to.
no therapy for them. And
Correct.
As far as the 3 victims turned survivors goes, I actually compare them to the other movie stars in my other documentary film. I'm talking about the 3 people in 3 cameos. The 4 people in the Smith perspective. The 5 people in Peace on Both Sides of the Gate. And these 3 people who were represented in Running with a Covert Narcissist. All 15 of those people have something in common, all right? That's that resiliency and that perseverance that I was talking about at the beginning of the interview, okay? When they, look, I didn't pick these 15 people at random. I vetted them, okay?
You sure did.
Yeah, and they didn't know that they were being vetted, but they were,
Because
okay?
as you said on part 1, you had to eliminate certain people to get to the core of what you wanted to portray in the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love making documentary films about these type of people, all right? When these 15 people, when they wake up in the morning and they go to the bathroom mirror, they see bravery staring back at them, okay?
Hopefully you see that too then.
I sure do. And they see pride, they don't see cowardice, and they don't shy away from the mirror, okay? And I was actually having dinner with one of the 5 NDEers in my film. His name is Chris Batts. And he said, you know, I love all of your 4 documentary films, but I have to tell you something. They remind me of movies where the protagonist is struggling through the movie, and at the end they get their way, and the antagonist gets their comeuppance. Well, you know, life isn't like that, Chris Batts said. He said, you know what? Each day, and I never forget this when he told me this, he said, each day I try and get a little bit better at my profession. Each day I try and get a little bit better at understanding my friends and family. I try and get a little bit better each day at understanding myself. And it's not like a light switch. I describe it as a dimmer switch. It's almost like you're turning it a little bit to the left each day, and eventually that light is going to be illuminated. And I absolutely translate that to other victims of covert narcissism. I'm very active in making stirring speeches to teach folks about covert narcissism and trying to get victims to become survivors. People reach out to me and I reach out back to them, and I tell them that story. I said, it's not going to be a light switch. It's very, very, very slow. It's
Definitely
almost
takes
like
time.
It takes it's almost, I say it's like a boxing match, okay? It's 12 rounds, and the covert narcissist won round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you are bloodied, you're on the canvas, and you've got a broken nose. You've got to get up and have that resiliency to make it to the end of the 12th round, and at the end, the referee is going to raise your hand, not the covert narcissist. I say, look, I understand you're in hell right now. There is fire all around you, and you can't see where the end is. Ask me, I've been there, all right? You can't see it right now, but you're going to grow as a human being because of the crap that you went through, okay? You're going to become a stronger person. You're also gonna become a softer person. You're gonna be wiser, okay? And the covert narcissist will remain the same. As a matter of fact, with age, they actually even go a little bit lower. The only thing that happens with the covert narcissist with age is that they become a better covert narcissist. Okay. Now, in relationship to me, and here's my big wind-up. In the quietest moments of the day, I don't want to have you think, or any of the audience think, that I'm some well-rounded person, okay? Because I'm not. I have plenty of issues. But when I think of things in the quietest moments, I go, I am leaving so much on the table. It's dormant, okay? I'm not being all that I can be. It really gets to me, okay? I'm like, I go the extra mile, but I can see that I can go the extra 10 miles, Karen, and I'm not doing that. And that's where that light switch comes in, and that's why I'm trying to make more documentary films.
So deep with you, these various subjects, so deep within you, and the covert narcissism, I know, is just huge. And there's a lot to learn about it, and I also want to tell people that they could be emotionally, financially, family court, in every way devastated by this type of thing. And as you say, there's a way back, but it requires a hell of work. So this film is very helpful when it comes to that type of thing. Once again, it is called Running with a Covert Narcissist, and you can find that film and every other film at jamesbonatovideo.com for free, and watch it as many times as you need to, because you might need to watch it again. Such an empath, we have that in common. Empaths really succumb sometimes to people that take advantage of us. We're sensitive and we're empathic, and you know what I mean, don't you? So this is James Bonato. Thank you so much. Auteur, filmmaker, also wedding photographer, wedding videographer, I should say. And I'm Karen Allen, and you can reach me at fomo21ka@gmail.com, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, James, and thank you all. Bye-bye.